Come on in, guys. Welcome to the Sit-Out Bench. I'm Matt.
And I'm Joe. We're two friends from the Midlands who are absolutely die-hard Survivor fans. Over the next 16 weeks, we're excited for you to join us for pre-season, in-season, and post-season content, focusing on Survivor UK.
If you haven't seen Survivor before, it is a reality and challenge game show where castaways are stranded on island and they have to work together to survive. The motto of the game is outwit, outlast and outplay, relating to the strategic, challenge and social values of the game. Each episode, the tribes will compete in challenge, with the losing tribe losing immunity and going to tribal council where they'll have to vote someone out of the game.
Eventually, those people who have voted out of the game after the merge will have the power to decide who will be crowned sole survivor. You can follow us on Instagram, on Twitter, follow us, interact with us, and definitely give us a 5-star review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to the pod. This episode, we're going to be focusing on our pre-season cast assessment and where we think people are going to fall. So take your spot on the sit-out bench and let's get started.
Joe, how are you feeling?
Hey, I'm Matt. Yeah, doing really, really well, mate. Really excited for this, and not long now till Survivor UK kicks off.
Yeah, it's really exciting. Obviously, this kicks off our pre-season coverage of Survivor UK. So we're just going to go through a few things that we know about the season so far. So obviously, Joel Dommett is going to be hosting. You might know him as the host of The Masked Singer, among other things. He's also a comedian. How are you feeling about Joel as a presenter?
Listen, I don't want to be too critical too soon. You know, when I thought about...
Before you've seen the proof in the pudding.
Listen, my knowledge of Joel Dommett is really limited. You know, I know him more as a comedian than I know him as a host.
Yeah.
The Masked Singer's not my thing. But that being said, I have been impressed with what I've seen in the really short clips. You know, definitely looks the part. He's jacked to hell.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I was initially skeptical, but I think, you know, in the trailer, he seems to be taking it seriously. So I think, you know, given the benefit of doubt, it might be all right. We'll wait and see. So it's going to be airing on Saturday and Sunday nights, although that's apparently meant to change at some point. Bit nerve-wracking to not have as much of a schedule for the show. Obviously, we want as many people to be able to watch it as possible. It's also meant to be similar to the Australian version of the show. It's a lot more physical. It feels longer. I think it is a longer amount of days, if I'm right.
I think you bang on the money. You know, more physical game, slightly less twists and turns, but you know what we're hoping for obviously is not to have non-elimination stuff.
Yeah.
You know, ideally, we want a nice clean game, eliminations every week. And just like you say, kicks off 28th, 29th. We'll talk a little bit later about maybe some of the production stuff and some of our worries about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, totally agree with you. So just running through the two tribes. So the blue tribe, and Matt, I'm going to butcher this, is Dinana.
Yeah, so I've seen two different possible names for the blue tribe. I've seen some people report it as Lanina and some people report it as Dinana. So who knows which one's going to be. I don't believe we've got any official confirmation on that one.
There we go. Wikipedia lied to me. There we go.
Yeah, that's it. On Wikipedia it's Dinana, but I've seen someone post that the beach that they're on is called Lanina, and the other beach, Calaton, is the tribe name definitely for the Orange Tribe, because we've seen that in the trailer.
So we might not know the tribe names, but one thing we definitely do know is who is on the blue Dinana tribe. So we have Ashley Bishop, Christopher Hall, Douglas Swinbanks, Hannah Baptiste, Lee Reeves, Rick Pegleg Bennett, Rate Carstairs, Ren Evledge, Sabrina Pace Humphrey. The other side, Calaton, we have Jess Woburn, Lawrence Maximilian Cardwell, Lillian Sen, Matthew Hayward, Nathan Dyke, Rachel Golding, Richard Kinner McKell, Shay Ravindra, and Tinuke Oyediran.
So initially I was a little bit skeptical of this cast, but I think this is one of those casts where the more that you look into them, the more that you find out how they're different, the more interesting they are. Obviously, there's quite a lot of diversity on this cast. Straight up, we've got a mix of different races, we have disabilities, and I think that's really important on the show. Obviously, at the end of the day, it is on some level a social experiment. So having people from all walks of life is key to what makes the show entertaining.
Credit where credit's due. I really think the BBC smashed casting. Like you say, diversity, top tier, it's like a really good representation. And having an average age of 34, you know, that's absolutely surreal. I think that's so good. So a little spoiler. So I did apply for season 1, got through to some of the sort of in-person stages. And when I was there, if I was honest, I'm 29 years old, and I was like the oldest person in the room. There was one lady who was older than me in like near 60s, but apart from that, everyone was early 20s. Credit to the BBC. I think they found the right people. They look really interesting. They look really different and dynamic. Even getting an Irish person on there. So I know there's a big pushback around casting not including Ireland, but really love to see that kind of Lee's there representing Ireland as well. I think that's the real positives in terms of what the BBC has done. I probably, Matt, I do have to get up on my soapbox. It's been a few minutes. I feel like I need to get there. we need to talk about a couple of the issues just generally, I think, with what's happened so far. Okay, so soapbox, here are my 3 points that I'll bring up, and I promise after this, I'll let them go and never bring them again. But one, we absolutely love the cast. It is absolutely insane that we are only finding out about the cast 3 weeks before the show goes live. And what seems to be even more, absolutely bonkers is all the interviews that are giving us little bits of insights into the cast are being done after the show's finished. And so if you're there, if you've read them already, you'll have seen it. It feels quite spoilery. Just based on people's responses, you're starting to gauge where did they go, what did they enjoy, who did they have relationships with. This could have been such a quick fix just to ask these questions at the beginning of shooting. Why is it happening afterwards? I think that's problem number one. Problem two, legitimately, the castaways are doing more to promote this programme than the BBC is. I've seen very, very little out there from the BBC itself about what's going to happen, when the show's going to be, who are the castaways. And again, this is such a fantastic show, has such an opportunity to be a real cultural movement here in the UK. You just got to ask, where's the marketing for it?
Yeah, I feel like you have to question whether, if you didn't follow sites that were reporting on the casting and then follow the castaways themselves, how much you'd actually be seeing about the season, because we're obviously following all the castaways, we're seeing loads of stuff from them, but in terms of what the actual BBC's putting out, I follow the BBC Survivor account as well, there's not much there realistically.
Yeah, and you alluded to it earlier. I think the most bizarre choice in the world is what you alluded to earlier. So we saw earlier that Pegleg put out on his Instagram about the dates that the show is going to happen, when the first episodes are going to air. And so he put out a post that on the 28th, it will air at 8:25, and episode 2 will air on the 29th of October at 8 o'clock. And then there's a little line after that where it says, please don't confirm anything else to the public because the show times may vary. Like, what are we doing? Like, this is
gone are the days where shows aired at the same time every week. Now we have no idea what's going on.
Like, here in the UK, we thrive on consistency, man. Genuinely, like Love Island, it's on the same time every night. You know where you are. You know where you want to be a part of it. Coronation Street, same thing. We are not built just to kind of just check the TV schedule every week. My nan might still buy the Radio Times. I don't know anyone else who does who's planning ahead. Absolutely bizarre choice.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's, how are they even meant to advertise it when they don't know what time the show is going to be on every week? I don't know if that's because it's in the run up to Christmas. I don't know how many episodes we'll be getting a week, whether it'll stay as 2 a week, whether it'll switch to 1 a week. We have no idea really. And I think that is a big problem when we're only a week away from the show. That's
it. I'll get off my soapbox now. I promise we won't touch that again. Maybe we will touch again. Maybe I've lied. but for now, let's put that aside. I think we're both really excited for this. And this is our cast assessment podcast. And really simply, when thinking about how we're going to assess the cast. So what we've done is independently place all 18 contestants into 4 different tiers. So starting at the bottom, the first 6 are going to be the early boots. So these would be people who we probably don't think are going to make the merge. The tier up from that is our merge makers. So people who are solid players, definitely going to make the merge. In our next tier have our wildcards, where we've each chosen 2 contestants. These are people who probably have the biggest difference in where they could land. Could go really early, could go really, really deep. And then finally, that top tier is our final 4. So 6 in the early boots, 6 in the merge makers, 2 wild cards, and 4 in the final 4. The way we're going to do this is we've put people into these tiers totally just based on what we've been able to read online, their bios. We haven't started looking at the tribes and thinking, who do we think is more likely to win an immunity challenge? and trying to work out things that way. It's totally just based on what we found online, the answers they've given, and we'll run through both our locks and then debate a little bit where we think maybe somewhere someone is in a tier that maybe they shouldn't be. And we're going to kick off, Matt, aren't we, with our pre-merge locks?
Yeah, so I just want to quickly run over thinking about it, just in case we have any new viewers who haven't seen Survivor. So pre-merge refers to the part of the game where we've got two tribes. Once we've got a few people being voted out, they will then merge into one whole tribe, and then that will keep going. Each person who's voted out will become a member of the jury who vote for the eventual winner out of the finalists. So first of all, our pre-merge tier. So we're going to start off by discussing our pre-merge locks, who are the people that we kind of agreed that we think will be pre-merge boots. So unfortunately, the first person that we think will be a pre-merge boot is Leilani. She is 45 from Hartford, and she's a barista and a cleaner. So one of the reasons we think she might be an early boot, obviously, she's got quite short answers. And this is one of the things when we talk about spoilery things within the cast by releases, is that some of the contestants gave much shorter answers than others who gave a lot more deep insight into their games. So we're feeling as though some of the people who gave short answers might well be early boots. It might just be the fact that they just gave short answers. We don't know that. It does certainly feel like there is less going on within their games. So apart from that, one of the things that she said was that she can be immature. She loves ignorant bliss with love, cuddles, and unity. This stands out as her being someone who's never seen Survivor before, because this goes starkly against the values of outwit, outplay, outlast, the slogan of Survivor, if you will. So obviously, Survivor's quite a cutthroat game. People backstabbing each other, trying to take out the big threats, and love, cuddles, and unity is not necessarily something that leads well into the show. Poor Leilani, she hadn't seen Survivor, she didn't know what she was getting herself into. So I don't think it necessarily bodes well for her. She also says that she struggled a bit as well. So Joe, what are your thoughts on Leilani?
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. Absolutely, again, astounding to read. I hadn't watched Survivor, didn't realise there was a psychological aspect to the game. Okay, cool. I don't want to say it. She seems like, I think she's going to have a great social game. I think she's going to have some great character moments.
Oh, absolutely.
But just kind of reading her responses, hasn't watched Survivor, doesn't know the psychological aspect. Imagine she would cope better with hunger. I can't help escape this feeling of, is she going to tap out? I hope I'm wrong. I hope it doesn't happen. But when you come into a game and you're expecting something very different, you have to ask, is this person going to be here come week 2, week 3?
We hope she does well, but for the moment, she's in our bottom tier. The next person in our pre-merge tier for this is going to be Jess, also from the Caleton tribe. I actually do really like Jess. I think she has a very positive energy. I think she seems really fun. Unfortunately, though, we did put her into the pre-merge section. Main reasons for this, she said she doesn't have any game plan. She's just following her instincts. But of course, those instincts might be good, but it's always not great to not know what you're getting yourself in for. She also said beach life was a worst nightmare, which I can relate to. I'm sure I would also find it to be my worst nightmare. I do think if you're struggling in your position on the island and you also don't really know what's going on with the game, I don't think it sets you up well. She also seems to be lacking a killer instinct for me. She just seems like a really nice person, which is great. And for all we know, she could go really far because of that. If people are playing strategically, she's going to be either an early boot for weaknesses in her mental strength, or she's going to maybe last until the merge. She was borderline for me, but I do think eventually she'll be taken out there. So
yeah, well, I just have to ask, Matt, you don't think she's going to be the GOAT? Do you think she could be that naive that people take it to the end?
I don't think she's going to be a GOAT, because I think if people like her, she's too much of a threat to take into that GOAT position. I think especially in a game where, if people do play with British sensibilities and they don't like strategic game, if Jess has not played a strategic game, potentially a big strategic player might take her to the end. But I think that could result in their loss purely because people vote for who they like better at the end of the day.
Super interesting. And I think I agree. She really strikes me as someone who's going to be in Strugglesville early on. It's nothing's going to come easy to her in a way. I tried to give everyone a fair chance and sort of reading her background, doing a bit of information on her. Really, really interesting. I ended up actually, Matt, listening to one of her podcasts. So she's been doing podcasts for a while. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm not the target audience. So shout out to Jess's podcast, Escaping the Mandemic, all about her struggles dating as a single lady in late 30s. And not a target demographic. It's probably not meant for me, but it was a hard listen. You know, and I'm listening to that 20-minute edited excerpt from her say, you know, what life was like to live with her. I could see potentially rubbing people some wrong ways, potentially that leading to an early boot after struggling some challenges. Jess, prove us wrong. You know, hopefully you go out there and smash it. But for right now, I agree. Definitely a lock to be an early boot. And we'll move down then to our next contestant, which is Rachel. So Rachel's 40, she's from Winstable, and she is an insurance claims handler. Overall, you know, I got a really positive vibe from the answers that Rachel was giving, and some of the things that she kind of talked about. Obviously has some strong morals and, you know, fantastic story to kind of just see something on Facebook and then going through and the whole process and getting there. Really, really impressive. I was liking her. And then I got to the part where she talked about her strategy and she talked about being open and honest. My heart broke right there, you know, because that's someone who's really sincere. Is probably, you know, really wants to play the game in a particular way. I just can't see everyone else playing an open and honest game. And if they do, I'm not here for it. My real worry, and interesting to kind of see what you think about this, mate, is Rachel gonna be the mum?
So I think Rachel could not be further from the mum role, personally. I think one of the things to note about this Caleton tribe is you have 3 women here between the ages of 38 and 45. So normally when we're looking at Survivor, particularly in the US season, they'll cast one woman within this age bracket, put her on one tribe. She'll be treated as if she's geriatric, you know, she'll be the grandma to the tribe. But I think you have 3 women here around the same age. For all we know, they could decide to work together. I mean, age especially doesn't come into it when everyone is around the same age. And the vibes I get from Rachel are actually that she's quite cool, quite sporty. I think she could bond well with the guys. She seems like a very cool person, and I think she could quite easily go quite far. I see her as being a potential tribe leader for this tribe as well, actually. That said, there are things within her bio that do give me cause for concern. Again, didn't go in with the strategy. She could learn, we never know. But also the putting people's needs before her own just seems as though she may have made mistakes along the way that have put her game at a disadvantage over others. And she doesn't seem like a schemy person. Rachel was one of the people that I was torn between pre-merge and merge, but I did go pre-merge. I see her maybe going in a swap screw scenario, so where one tribe has more players than another tribe at a swap. I think that Rachel's a big personality, and that could easily lead to her being voted out of the game there.
I can really see that. Yeah, I definitely don't think she's a week one. You know, I think she's going to be there a couple of weeks. Let's see.
Okay, so let's move on to the next person in our pre-merge bracket. And that is the first member of this blue tribe, which is Lee. He's 28 from Belfast and he's a boxer. This is one of those where I was very persuaded by the short answers and the content of the answers in the bio. He says that he came in blind, he's never seen the show before, he didn't realise there'd be strategy, he calls himself an idiot at some point. The whole thing has a lot of red flags, and I think that made me feel he was definitely pre-merge, but also I could see him lasting longer. I think something to note about this blue tribe is that they are all very physically strong, and so just because someone is physically strong doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to be someone that could easily be taken out of the game. What are you thinking about, Lee?
Yeah, I think he's going to be the lads. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think he needs some of that on a tribe. And what I really get the sense is that I know that Rachel in her bio talks about enjoying the head-to-heads. I think Lee is going to...
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I think he's going to dominate it. I think
the boxer will come out.
The boxer. Honestly, I did go away, so I had such a bitter taste from watching the Dylan Dennis-Logan Paul fights. I thought, gosh, I have to see some proper fighting. And so I did look up some of Lee's boxing highlight. Guy looks absolutely jacked, super lightweight, very fast. So I think on some of those head-to-head stuffs, he's really going to thrive. And you'll know how important it is to kind of, especially in that early part of the game where you're not quite sure, you're feeling each other out. Some of that physical strength is important. You want people who enjoy the head-to-head things. But I also think Lee is going to be a real character, a little bit Marmite. I think some people are going to love him. Some people are going to hate him. I think what I'm really excited for, though, and again, this is in doing some research around Lee and some of the stuff he's done, is I think, Matt, that probably in week 3, there's going to be an interaction between him and Christopher on his tribe. We haven't talked about Christopher yet, but when we do later, we'll sort of mention that he's a singer-songwriter. And I think at some point, this is going to come up. Christopher's going to say to everyone, that's what I do. I'm a singer-songwriter. And in this moment, Lee is going to turn. He's going to look Christopher dead in his eyes, and he's going to say, you know what, mate? I'm actually a rapper too. And the reason I think that is online, MC Lee should be trending. Okay, legitimately. When you search Lee Reeves in YouTube, about 4 scrolls down are both his rapping videos. And if I could kind of paint a picture for our for all the fans that are joining us, imagine how you felt when you were 17, hanging out in your mate's car. You turned up the radio really loud and you just sort of freestyled along. Let me play you right now one of MC Lee's biggest hits.
Ready? Yep. Check this. It's MC Lee. Show you how to do it properly. Right now. I said, I'm on the mic, put up your lighter. MC Lee, I'm a smooth individual, spit my rhymes, they're always original. Who's coming on? Yes, Lee's coming in. When I'm on the mic, I ride the rhythm. I am the man, yes, who's powerful, think he's better than me, you better think again, number in. When I'm on the mic, I'm murdering, jumping in. MC Lee, yeah, MC, see me to be quivering. I get MCs out of trauma, I've been so fuck Jack Lynch and fuck Pat Flynn. MC Lee, see, here we go. I'm the man, gonna run this
okay.
show.
I mean, there's a high production value than I was expecting it to be better. Do you feel a bit like Wendell casting the vote for Chris Noble, though?
Oh, man, it's unreal. There are 2. Honestly, go check out MC Lee on YouTube. Well worth a watch.
I feel like this will be trending after the show.
This is the start. Music's going to be a theme for all this cast, I reckon. They're all quite musical. But listen, I've had friends when I grew up who thought they were rappers. And the thing is, when you think you're a rapper, you want to rap for other people. So the question is, Matt, what is the over or under that Lee rapped on the TV show more than 2.5 times? What are we thinking? Over or under that we get on the show Lee rapping more than 2.5 times?
I mean, once might be enough for them to vote him out for it. I'm taking the over. You think it's going to be a lot?
I think, especially if he does it within the first few episodes, we'll get 2 or 3 raps from him. Maybe it'll be a collaboration with Chris. I don't know.
I mean, honestly, it could be good for it. It's always good to break out of the stereotype when you're on Survivor. Like, people think they know who you are. They put you in a box. By doing something they don't expect, you open yourself up to potential alliances and friendships. Can't be a bad thing.
Yeah, no, definitely true. This could all be part of his plan. He's a physical beast with a sensitive rapping side. Absolutely love it.
Iconic.
We'll put the full clips in the show notes for all of our listeners. Go check it out. So that's our locks. Those are our 4 pre-boot locks. We now get into some of our debates. So people who either one of us thought would go pre-merge or be an early boot, but someone had them somewhere else. So our first person who we sort of didn't quite agree on was Ashley. And Ashley, first off, big shout out to Ashley. She did her undergraduate degree here in the University of Nottingham in philosophy. So big shout out to Nottingham, best place in the world if you're going to come and study. Not biased in the slightest. So she's 34. She's got experience in an advertising agency. She's worked for lots of different sort of marketing businesses. Someone who really strikes me as a very social player, very good sort of strategic thinker. When I saw her answers, I thought, she really does show awareness of what she wants to do. And I think the part that really talked to that was when she talked about not wanting to be the leader. I think that's always a really smart thing that shows someone's seen the game, when they don't want to be the leader straight away. For me, I did have her as an early boot, and I have just a question about her health. So in her answers, she talked about getting sick 3 weeks out. And you know what? She might be fine now. But I just worry with that limited diet. Obviously, rice isn't going to be any issues for her dietary requirements, but you've got to think that someone who kind of is in that environment where they're eating a very specific type of food, how are they going to adjust to having so little? So I think that just made me question, is she going to have the strength in the challenges? Is she going to have the energy to make those bonds around camp? So I went for an early boots.
Yeah, so I can see where you're going with that, but I had her as making the merge. I think one of the things I noticed about Ashley is that she's one of the people that, well, not sure if she's never seen the show before. She doesn't mention having seen the show before. But despite that, she's one of the people that had a strategy and talked about willing to be playing strategically. She's clearly going to have a very good social game. I can see her building some really great relationships, coming across as a very strong team member. She also says that she could be a mental challenge asset. There's not too many of those in the cast. It tends to be more on the physical side. So I think she'll be useful to her tribe there. I think there's quite a lot of people on this tribe who she could fit in with. See her bonding with people like Doug, Chris, Rach, Ren. She could be a bit of a social butterfly. And I think she probably is stronger than she looks. The one thing I had from her bio that I wasn't so sure on was this thing about feeling imposter syndrome and self-doubt. That can always be a problem in the game. I don't think it'll be a problem for her too much early on, but I think when we're getting down to it later on in the game, having self-doubt can lead to paranoia, can lead to feeling anxious, and you can always end up blowing up your own game near the end if you fail to trust people around you and fail to trust your instincts on what you know is happening. So that's what I felt about Ashley. So we'll move on to our next debate person now, which is Sabrina. Sabrina's someone that I had in my early boots category. So we've swapped around on these ones. So things to put about Sabrina. In any other season, I would have a lot of confidence in Sabrina, but I think she might have had a bit of a bad tribe draw here. Obviously, all of the other women around her age are on the other tribe, and she's been left with a lot of younger people. So I think she could stick out a bit there. And despite being ultra fit, extremely strong, I think when it comes down to it, it's the social dynamics that are going to matter on this tribe because everyone is so physically fit. So I'm a little bit worried she could be an outsider here. She says in her bio that she believed social skills would be good. Believed, obviously, in the past tense. I'm not sure whether that she's talking about in the game or whether she's saying she thought she would be good, but it didn't quite work out for her. I do like, though, that she doesn't want to be a leader. She wants to be quiet and stay back. But she did say that she should have trusted a gut instinct. If something felt off, it probably was. So for me, that kind of puts her a bit on the back burner, and I think that is why, for me, she's a pre-merge boot. Joe, what do you think about Sabrina?
So I think you're pretty bang on the money, all in all. So I had her down as a merge maker, but if I'm honest, for me, that's just going an extra week or two. I don't think she's going to go super deep. So yeah, I think equally loved her answers, really drawn to her. I think the endurance part is such an underrated element. I think often we look, don't we, at kind of the big biceps, the thick legs, we think, gosh, that is someone who's going to be really good in the challenge. When actually, I think she's probably going to add that endurance is really going to serve her well in a lot of the tasks and outlasting the other athletes. Didn't have her as an early boot. Think she'll make the merge, but maybe not go too deep. Cool. Fantastic. Let's move then to Hannah. And Hannah's someone I had as a early boot and really liked Hannah's answers. I really loved her connection when she talks about, why she got into Survivor. That really resonates with me, that kind of getting into Australian Survivor. She has an awareness of the game. I think, she's really, really credible in terms of being a strong contestant. And I think she showed like a nice balance in her responses between being physical, but also kind of having some of that mental agility. Again, doing a bit of research, her Wikipedia bio is absolutely bonkers, like absolutely wild. So obviously she's a football player, and so she has a whole chunk on her, or like a little subheading on her Wikipedia that says, what's her style of play in football. And so I expanded this subheading, expected to see like some really decent, she loves to attack, she's got pace, blah, blah, blah. And it just says, Baptiste mainly operates as a midfielder. That's it. Style of play, she's a midfielder. Okay, great. Absolutely wild Wikipedia page. You can change that yourself, Hannah. Totally recommend. Go in there. Someone's done you dirty on that entry, so go in and update it with your real style of play. But yeah, I really liked her. I think again, someone who's on the edge for me. But ultimately, I think there were a lot of strong contestants, so I had her going as an early boot.
Yeah, so for me, Hannah was actually one of my wildcard picks. So we'll talk about her a little bit later on when we get to the wildcard tier and go through all four of our wildcard picks at the same time. So The last person that we have in this debatable early boots tier is Richard. Okay, so Richard is 36 from Dalkeith, Scotland. For me, he gave very short answers, and so I couldn't really get a good feel on him. He said he wants to be a team player and empathetic. He wants to stay in the middle of the pack and not stick out and not be opportunistic. Those are good things, but for me, I just didn't get a good sense of where he was going to place in that.
One line wasn't enough for you.
Yeah. I just like his picture as well doesn't come across as social at all. So it was like he wants to be a team player and empathetic. I was just like, I'm not feeling it. So obviously this is one of those situations where I just can't tell. I'd have to wait on the show. And for me, there was enough people in my other tiers that I felt okay putting him in the pre-merge tier. The other thing, obviously, he's a bigger guy. As a bigger guy myself, I know that I couldn't do those challenges. So I do worry about, I mean, he looks strong, but I do worry about his challenge ability and if the rest of the tribe will see him as a liability.
Yeah, so I kind of cheated here. So I had Richard as my wild cards, but I have to be legit. Is he not the most first booty type of person that you've ever seen on a cast list?
It does feel kind of like, give him another, if he was 5 or 6 years older, I'd be certain, but if he's 36, he has a chance, he has a shot.
Listen, the fact that he has a coat on in his picture, that just tells you all he needs. You know, I just hear the producers, Richard, you've just been voted off, get your coat, mate. Oh, don't worry about that. I've had it on since the pictures. You know, it's like, I don't. At
least he'll be warm.
He didn't expect it to go far. He never took off his coat. So I genuinely, there's something inside of me that thinks, listen, actually, this guy should be an early boots. But there's a dark space in my mind that I've listened into, and I've thought, no, maybe Richard is playing this absolutely perfectly. Maybe he knows that people like you and me, Matt, are out there, and we're going to judge him, and we're going to say he's not cut out for Survivor. This isn't him, and he is going to dominate. You know, potentially this is all a ruse. The short answers are to throw us off completely. BBC have been fantastic in letting him give short answers because he actually goes phenomenally deep.
He's playing the game outside of the game. 8D chess.
So he 100% is one of my wild cards. He's either going to go so quick or, you know, I'll say this. If he makes it to week 3, he automatically becomes my winner pick. You know, I mean, just by default, just for getting that far. So Richard, you're my wild card. You know, looking forward to seeing you, mate. So we'll move now to our merge makers, and we'll look first at the people we think are locks. So the person we're going to touch on first is Shay. So he is 33 years old. He's a finance risk manager from London. Really loved kind of his bio. I think he came across as someone very well travelled, very well experienced. And I think that's going to lean in really well to being able to create connections with such a diverse cast. Clearly had some knowledge about Survivor, which I think came through really strongly. I can't shy away though from that part where he talked about not being a risk adverse person, but then realised he was either, you know, go big or go home. That was his philosophy.
Yeah.
To me, that's just hinting at someone who tried to make a big move, maybe got idled out, maybe got blindsided, didn't quite work. So again, really like him. Think he's got a great sort of energy around him, but I think he is probably going to make one big move too many and ultimately be voted out just after the merge.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think he's the fan of the fans on this cast who is most likely to overplay his hand slightly, maybe not read the room on the fact that not everyone else wants to play so aggressively strategically. He's obviously a huge fan of the show, love his story. He said he wanted to lay low, then seize control in the middle, and he said, turns out that was harder than I thought, or something along those lines. So I definitely think he could go a long way in the game, but I think around the merge time, I think he's going to find himself in trouble. Maybe he'll not have enough allies to pull off his move. Maybe people might be a bit sketched out by the fact that he is clearly playing strategically. But I do think somewhere around that time is going to be his downfall.
Agreed. Let's move now to Nathan. Again, someone we had as a merge maker lock. So Nathan's 35. lives now in Manchester. He's a fitness instructor and operations manager. I think the first thing we have to say is, to me, he could definitely be this season's challenge beast. He's got huge arms, he's got thick legs. All the questions in his pre-interview, he seems very focused on what he wants to do, man on a mission.
Absolutely.
So really, really impressed. That being said, I was super impressed, especially guys absolutely jacked. But I couldn't help but notice in that picture, the group shot, you know, the one I'm talking about, Matt, where they're all together with Joel.
Yeah.
He's not a tall man, is he?
He's not a tall man, which is surprising because he does look like he would be a tall man. This cast is fairly tall, to be fair, so I think he's probably average height, but he definitely doesn't stand out as being as imposingly big as you'd think he would be.
In his solo pictures, he looks like an absolute behemoth. Yeah. I think you're being generous there, saying average height. I'm going to give him 5'5" based on that picture. Nathan, at us, prove us wrong. You know, if it's 5'6", we apologise.
Send him an angry DM, not me. I'll go 5'10".
That being said, listen, he's a good-looking man. You can't deny. He's chiseled chin, great-looking man. I think he's going to make some great connections, very focused. I think ultimately he's going to be someone that's going to be really, really valuable in that first portion of the game, you know, where it's two tribes and winning that immunity as a team is so important. I think once it gets to the merge, people start looking around. And although it's probably not a real threat, they start saying, Nathan's pretty good. He can start winning here. And I think that just, you know, puts that target on his back. So ultimately, I have him as a merge maker.
Yeah, so for me as well, I think he is the prototypical comp beast merge boot. If you look at other seasons of the show, when people get to the merge, they're looking around at who is a physical competitor, who can win those individual immunities that'll be key, who's someone that they need to get rid of, and the first opportunity that they can. And I think Nathan definitely fits that bill. I had quite a few red flags with Nathan's bio, actually. So I definitely think he seems more complex than just the strong guy. He says he believes in Kaizen, the Japanese proverb for continuous improvement. So he's definitely got an intellectual layer to him there. My worry is that he said he thinks the rest of the camp were inspired watching him, which I think either that's very true, this is very aware of that, or potentially someone that's going to rub people the wrong way. He also said that he wouldn't do certain things to win, which says to me that he's not willing to play strategically cutthroat to be able to cut allies to get to the end of the game and win. So for me, I do have him making the merge.
Love it, Matt. You want a bloodbath, don't you?
I do. Knives out, stabbing everyone.
Well, I think that takes us really nicely then into our next merge lot, which was Christopher. So we've mentioned him before. Watch out. He's possibly going to be doing a rap duet with Lee. TBD on that one. But Christopher is 36. He's from Bridgends, and his occupation is a singer-songwriter. I thought he seemed really good, you know, based on some of his questions. And I'm going to be honest, I chose him to make the merge specifically because of what he said about the underwater challenge. Spoiler, he says that the challenges that he was most looking forward to were the physical ones. But then he also says the underwater challenge was exciting because it was a real mental game. And you have to tap into a place where you'll either keep going or you crumble. Clearly, he's done that classic Survivor challenge where everyone is under the water, holding onto the grate above them and struggling to breathe. We know that only really happens in the individual portion of the game. To me, that just screams this is someone who's kind of making the merge.
Yeah, so I completely agree. I think it's very likely that he makes the merge based off of that. But also, I think he has an excellent strategy going into the game. He said he's very confident in his own abilities. He wants to be a social player. He'll have a mischievous side and build genuine bonds. He said he wants to be flexible strategically. And for me, I just think that sounds like a very good strategy going into it. I've seen a few of his Instagram videos. He comes across as a bit of a cheeky chappy, very friendly. I can see him bonding with a lot of people. I don't think people are going to want to get rid of him. I think they'll see him as trustworthy and potentially someone that they'll take very far. He didn't make it into my Final Four tier. I had him at the merge, but I wouldn't be surprised if he got very close to that based on his bio.
Got to ask as well, he's just put out a new song, Shoulda, Coulda, Woulda. Don't know if you've listened to that yet.
I did have a listen, yes.
Very sort of a disco / boy band, sort of that vibe.
Yeah.
You got to ask that question though. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. Is this him lamenting about what happened on Survivor?
You never know. You never know.
Feels like the most generic title, maybe, to be lamenting about anything that happens in your life. But, you know, we can't rule it out at this point. So let's wait and see. And those are all of our merged lot. We move now into some of the ones that we were debating around.
Yeah. So the first person we had debating making the merge. For me, Lawrence, I put him into the merge makers category. I think there was a lot to like about his bio, and there was also a lot that gave me a bit of concern. I'll start with the concerns. So he stated other soft millennials, referring to other people. I always think antagonizing yourself is not a great way to go about it. Luckily, there's not too many young people on this tribe. I also found it kind of like, I have a master's degree, and I found it kind of exhausting to read his answers because they were so wordy, so referential. I do feel like he's going to have to watch himself, otherwise he's going to alienate people. But on the other side of that, he does say that's what he's going to do. He wants to be the village idiot. He wants to be neutral and non-political. He wants to be a bit of a prankster, a bit of a jokester. And I can see that working for him. But my worry is, how long are you able to keep up this personality? How long is it viable to force yourself to present in one way? Because I think the game is exhausting. It's going to tire you out. Naturally, you're going to be yourself. And it might just be that in his bio, he was writing it up because he could, and he is just an easy to get along with personality. So we don't know. But from what I see, I think there's enough here for me to say that he kind of knows what he's doing. He researched about the game, and I think he's likely to make the merge based on that.
Yeah, no, I really see that and feel really similarly to you. I have him down as my wild card. That's why I didn't put him in that merge maker category. He loves an idol. So in his questions, he references George Mallory and Schwarzenegger twice.
Yeah.
He's only got a couple of lines. Somehow he's name dropping people already. So that being said, I think he's clearly got a lot of self-awareness about what he is, the type of character he wants to play. I feel similarly to you, that village idiot sort of comedian role. How long does that last? Do people want to tolerate that? What I did really like, though, is where he talked about finding a cave just for himself.
Yeah.
And that really spoke to me as someone who's not just staying at camp, but this is someone who's exploring. This is someone who's finding different places. I just had this feeling, Matt, and, jump on me if I'm wrong, but this is someone who could find an idol. If you can find a cave that no one can find, you can sure as heck find an idol.
Yeah.
And again, I think that just plays in. I think real wildcard could go early in the merge or has some real potential to go deep and looks like he's had a strong relationship with Doug based on some of his answers as well. I feel positive about him as my wildcard.
Absolutely.
The next one we were kind of debating was Pegleg. And before we talk Survivor, don't want to bring it too serious, but I have to just say, absolute legends, Cornish legends, inspirational story. So reading up on this guy, so when he was born without an ankle in his left leg, and his parents made the decision to amputate. And I watched a video where his parents talked about, why they did that, and ultimately as well, how they helped him. And one of the things that I was really impressed by is that his dad's attitude was, when he fell down, someone would say, let's help him up. And his dad said, no, if he wants to get up, he can get up himself. Maybe this is slightly controversial, but, in today's world, I think sometimes we're really trying to almost play down to people who have certain conditions in your life. And I think there's a balance. I think we need to be respectful and we need to help adapt things. But also, I was really impressed by that drive that it's clearly given Pegleg throughout his whole life. And seeing a guy with one leg surfing, absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, mind-blowing. On a personal level, I think really inspirational message. Really glad he got on. I think he's going to be great TV. And I think he's really going to be sort of, what Survivor's about, that competitive spirit. Sometimes I get a little bit nervous with these people. Is that all they are, the inspirational story? But I didn't get that feeling from him. I got the feeling that he was going to be a real player. He talked about being middle of the road, but then, also having a strategy to help get him to the ends. He talks about being competitive and all the different obstacle courses that he referenced. I get the sense that if you can build an obstacle course in your garden and practice, you're coming in there to play. You're coming there to play really hard.
Oh, yeah.
Ultimately, I put him in my merge makers and not my final four, because just like we know, you start to get to the end of the game and you look around and you think, who's the jury going to side with? That's a really good story to tell the jury. How do you beat that? So ultimately, I think he's just a merge maker, not in the final four.
Absolutely. So the reason I don't have him in my merge tier is because Pegleg is my wild card. I think he could go further than that. I think he could go earlier than that. So I will talk about him a little bit later when we get to the wild card section. But I just think he's a really cool guy. Surf school owner is one of the coolest jobs on these lists. I'm just really looking forward to watching him play with them. Right, so our next debated player for going in the merge category is Matthew. He's 21 from Cumbria and he works in hospitality. I like his game plan to be underestimated. I think he could have a good social game. He knows that he's the youngest player and he knows how to use that to his advantage. He said he wants to be adaptable. I did have him in my merge category because I think that's enough to get him that far far along. But I do have concerns about his overall knowledge of the game. The ultimate challenge is something this version of Survivor is kind of using as a tagline. So him repeating that felt a little bit buzzwordy to me. I also think he's going to be well liked, but is that enough to be able to get him further? I just think there's a lot missing in the bio for me, but obviously that could just be because it didn't get put in the bio. They're asked to write these last minute as far as we know. So he just wrote down his overall feelings on the game. So I think he definitely has potential. For me, I think there's some good stuff there, but I was just looking for something a bit deeper for my Final Four tier.
So I could not disagree more. I think you've massively undersold him. I think at him on Instagram, Matthew. Don't let him.
Because he juggles knives.
So I did not have this guy as the merge maker. I had him in the Final Four. I really liked it. Maybe it's just the energy that I got from the answers, what I've seen online, and potentially I like that underdog story. I like that kind of, youngest castmate playing it up. I think there's some real legs to that. Totally agree. I think he's going to be a really good social player. I think he's going to be a competent physical asset in all of the tasks. But ultimately, he's someone who strikes me as one of the really strategic people that are there. More than anyone else, I got that sense, actually, that I think he's got a strategy to this. And I think he's going to be able to play the person and play the game. So I had him as my Final Four, or one of my Final Four picks.
Nice.
So the last person we were debating whether they were a merge maker lock or if they sat somewhere else was Rach. So Rach is 23, she's from Glasgow, and she's a personal trainer. And again, she has a real sort of survivor physique for this. Someone who is looking very, very impressive, can definitely compete in challenges. And I think somebody with kind of that background of kind of a personal trainer probably already has kind of those skills to be able to mix really well, both with the women that are there and also the men. So there's something for me about her ability to talk across those borders, to really be able to connect with other people. And I think she's going to become a real fan favourite. I think she's going to do extremely well, connecting with people socially. I can see her being part of an alliance and driving that alliance to do some real strategic things. But again, I think near the end, people will look at her and say, do I want to be sitting next to her? And ultimately, that's why I had her just as a merge maker.
Yeah, so the reason I didn't have Rach as the merge is because I put her in my Final Four, actually. I think she's a bit of the pocket rocket type archetype. So I think she's got the best of both worlds, really. She's small in that she's not physically imposing. She's unlikely to draw attention as being a threat. But also she's extremely strong. She's going to be a huge asset to this tribe. I'd be very surprised if they even considered voting her out for the first half of this game, because I think she has all the strength that she's going to need to be a fantastic team player. She also says she has a lot of mental strength. She's also a huge fan of the challenges. She's a huge fan of Australian Survivor, which this season is obviously going to mirror. So I think she knows this game. She knows what she's going to have to do. I think she's going to have a lot of shields in front of her in these bigger guys, which I think she's going to get along with really well. And also, I love that she said that about a strategy, tune in to find out more. I thought it was really cheeky. She obviously is keeping some under wraps there that we don't know about. To me, that says that she has a winning strategy on her hands and she doesn't want to give anything away. So that's why Rach for me was her Final Four pick.
I could totally see that. Should we flick then, just think about our wildcards? And so in my wildcard category, my two people were Lawrence. Again, think very strategic. I think he's going to be finding a lot of idols. And my other wildcard was Richards. Either the very first person out, or if he makes it to week 3, I'm on record now, he's my winner. So my two wildcards were Lawrence and Richards.
Okay, so my wildcards, first one was Hannah. I saw the same issues with the bio that you did. I thought the answers were kind of short. It wasn't giving too much. Obviously, she's physically strong, but on a tribe where everyone else is physically strong. But for me, I also saw a massive upside to Hannah. I think she comes across as very friendly. Even a picture by itself, it's the complete opposite of Richard's picture. She looks friendly. She looks approachable. She looks excited. She's definitely going to be a challenge asset. One of the question marks I had was she wanted to showcase her physical strength, which can obviously make someone a threat in the game, which is why I didn't just straight put her in the merge category. She's a fan of the show. She binged it during lockdown. She's physical, social. She's going to use communication skills, authenticity, and social charm to build strong alliances. So she's someone that's here to play. And I think there's a slight risk of it not going too well for her, but I'm fairly confident that Hannah's going to last a while in this game. So that's why I had her as a wild card. My other wild card was Pegleg. So obviously, as you were saying, you think he has merge potential. I think he could potentially go further than that. We often split the game into social, strategic, physical. For me, it's kind of social as 50%, physical and strategic as the other 50%. And I think that comes down to respect versus how liked someone is. So I think you can win the game if you're well liked and you're well respected. But I think if you're having issues in either of the two categories, it lowers your winning chance. So for me, I think Pegleg's going to have the respect regardless. Like if he gets to the end, he's very likely going to win. I think people are going to really like him. He says he gave up his World Surf Championship title to go on Survivor. He's someone that really wants to be here, and I think that people will like him. However, the reason I put him as a wild card was because there was one quote where he said he has the Gen X attitude of getting on with it and not whining. And for me, that's a bit of a social red flag, especially on this tribe where he's been put with the younger contestants. I do think he will fit in, and I think he will be fine. But for me, that quote there was a slight concern to me. He did say he has the mindset to bite his tongue and blend in, but it's whether he's able to keep doing that throughout the long game that is Survivor. Okay, so now we're moving on to our Final Four locks. These are people that both of us has in our Final Fours, and we actually both put 3 of the same people into our Final Four. So first off, we're going to start with Ren. So Ren is 28 from London, and they are a network data scientist. They say it was their favourite show since they were 14 years old, which I've worked out would put it around the time of Token Sheens. So they've been watching for a very, very long time. They're a huge fan. And my huge thing about Ren, the reason why they're right at the top there in the Final Four, is because they understand jury management and how much it's repeated throughout their bio. They keep saying they want to tailor their game to get the votes at the end. And when it comes down to it, that is what Survivor is all about. It's being able to sit against a jury that you know will vote for you to win. And I think Ren knows that. And this is a huge game plan. It sticks out among all the others as being the best one on paper. I also think they're a potential cutthroat player. They know the game. They're not going to be afraid to make big moves. And I think their strategy to get on with all types of people is going to get them right to the end, and then they can make those moves necessary to be able to win.
For all those reasons, I love them. All of those above. You say to me, data-driven strategy, I'm yours. You know, that really struck me. Someone who's calculated, like you say, understands the game, understands how to manage people. I was insanely impressed with the responses and had them in the Final Four straight away.
Brilliant. So the next person that we both have in the Final Four is Tanuka. Not 100% sure how to pronounce her name yet. I'm sure we'll get clarification on that as we head into the start of the season. For me, she's the most likely lock for a UK All-Star. She has this incredible personality. It jumps right off the page. If you watch her videos on Instagram, it jumps right at you there as well. She describes herself as a disco dynamite London babe, which is potentially the best self-description I've read in any Survivor pre-season content. She's a huge fan. She's very focused on the survival element and the challenge element, but I think that goes a long way in diminishing her threat level if she's not coming across as someone who's thinking about the game all the time. But we know that she is thinking about the game all the time because she's studied FBI techniques. She knows everything that she wants to do. And she also says she's a good mediator, which I really like. Just someone who's going to be able to bring calm and unite the tribe together.
Equally, loved her. Loved the energy that I kind of got from reading it. Loved the commitment to kind of watch every season. And I think, again, someone who's going to be really good socially, developing those strong relationships, those strong alliances that are just going to move her forward and also help her stay under the radar. I see her as someone that will be liked by everyone, but maybe not suspected by everyone. You know, maybe they won't see just how ruthless she's going to be. I think she's got some really quirky facts as well. So saw on her socials was sort of talking about her Guinness World Records that she currently holds. Hopefully, Matt, you haven't looked this up already.
I have not, no.
Okay, fantastic. So one of the records that she claims to be the world record holder in is someone who can do the most cartwheels while roller skated in 1 minute. So she did this in
impressive.
2020. Minute, 60 seconds. How many cartwheels do you think she did?
Well, I assume you have to get like a bit of speed back up between each cartwheel, so maybe like 20? I don't know.
She smashed it, mate. She did 30.
That is impressive.
30 cartwheels. Literally, my two girls, they do gymnastics. They love doing cartwheels. Sometimes they'll say to me, Dad, do a cartwheel. And I do one, and I'm destroyed, you know, let alone putting roller skates on me and asking me to do multiple.
I mean, I struggle doing a teddy bear roll no matter doing cartwheels.
And suddenly it's clear why we're doing the podcast and we're not on the beach.
Exactly.
I have to say, though, she unfortunately is no longer the record holder. So she got beaten a year later by Tilak Kaisman. So she did 30. How much do you think the new record holder did?
It's going to be like 31, something devastating.
Mate, she smashed it again. 41.
41?
How's that even possible?
Question whether that was a real cartwheel. Maybe she's really short, so it takes less time for it to go around.
I can also, though, just picture this moment. It's probably like individual immunity. Maybe they're down to 6, and Joel says, and the competition today is to wear roller skates and do cartwheels.
She's got it.
A beam of light comes down, she steps forwards, just smashes out 30 in a row.
I think definite challenge beast for Tanika there.
Yeah, so I think I love how you described earlier about how across all those 3 aspects, I think she has something in each of those. So really happy to put her as a Final Four lock. So our final person that then moves in as our Final Four lock is Doug. And again, even in the answers, I think Doug is playing the game within the game. 32 from the Isle of Mull, and he's got down his occupation is a flood risk consultant. Now he's downplaying this massively, Matt. Downplaying it, even in that first answer. So on his LinkedIn, he is a principal consultant. And let me tell you, so in my work, I spend a lot of time around consultants. And if someone is a principal consultant, they let you know it. You
can't hide it, Doug. Joe's been stalking you.
That's not a title you get and then just forget that you're a principal consultant. Yeah. He knows that. He's playing the game, even with us saying, oh, don't look at me. I'm just a flood risk consultant. Don't believe it. Man, very, very strategic, clearly very smart. And you know what? I think Nathan is going to be the obvious challenge beast of this season. But I really think it's Doug who's going to be able to blend really nicely those kind of social skills with also being sort of a really critical physical part of any team, really being able to help any team win. I think he's got a great sort of core strength as well from the rugby, from all the sports, to help him in the individual portion of the game. My one bugbear with Doug, and apologies, Matt, this might not feel as real to you because I know you're only 5'10". But he talks about being 6'4". Okay, I'm 6'4" too. I'm 6'4", nearly 6'5". Okay, I know the pain of when people ask you to get things from the top shelf or they make the jokes about the height. And I was devastated to just see him cementing these fallacies inside of his answers. He says, I was hopeful I could put my height to good use and help my tribe get to those hard to reach places and get the shelter up. Like,
you never know.
Yeah, that's definitely going to happen, isn't it? Someone's going to find
the tribe will succeed because of all the coconuts high up in the trees. Doug is able to get them down on his tiptoes.
Maybe Rachel's going to come up to him. Oh, Doug, there's an idol up there, but I can't reach it. It's too high. Please, could you get that for me? And he will step forward. Yes, this is my moment. This is what. So great player. I'm really excited to see what he does. I think he's a Final Four lot. I think he's playing down though, both how athletic, how smart, and how accomplished he is. So I think definitely one to watch.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think if you're looking at the difference between Nathan and Doug, who are clearly going to be the biggest, strongest guys on each tribe, is you look at who's surrounding Nathan and suddenly he's standing out. If you look at who's surrounding Doug, you've got Rach there, you've got Hannah there, you've got Christopher there. Suddenly Doug's not looking anywhere near as threatening from a physical standpoint. I also loved a lot of his answers. He's a fan of the OG Survivor UK, which is interesting because no one else mentions having seen that. I haven't seen that myself, so not really sure what to put across there. He said he's a funny guy. He's going to be well liked. I loved how he kept saying he wants to be indispensable to the tribe, and I think clearly he will be. But also that's interesting because if everyone else is physical, he's going to be able to keep putting the idea out that he's indispensable to the tribe, even though he might not actually be indispensable to the tribe with the strength that they have anyway. I also like the fact he wants to have a meat shield strategy. I do question who the hell's going to be his meat shield. But it's a good strategy. It might work out for him. Who knows? Maybe he can put Chris in front of him. He might downplay his strength. We don't know. He might pretend to be weaker than he is. But yeah, he has a good plan for both the pre-merge and the post-merge. And I just think that he's positioned really well to do well in the game. So, that is all of the cast from this season. Do you feel any different about the cast overall after talking about them?
Do you know what? There are a couple where I think, really interesting points. Ultimately, I'm settled. I think I'm good. So just to kind of recap for me then. So on my list, I have the early boots as Ashley, Hannah, Jess, Lee, Lilani, and Rachel. My merge makers, Christopher, Shay, Nathan, Pegleg, Rach, and Sabrina. My wild cards are Lawrence, and the ultimate wild card, Richard. And in my final four, I have Matthew, Ren, Doug, and Tanuke.
Yeah, and just to recap mine, pre-merge I have Lee, Sabrina, Leilani, Rachel, Jess, and Richard. My mergers are Ashley, Christopher, Shay, Nathan, Matthew, and Lawrence. My wildcards are Pegleg and Hannah. And my final four are Doug, Rach, Ren, and Tanuka. Matt,
I've got to be honest, we're running long, but this has been an awesome podcast. Any final thoughts from you? Anything you wanted to add about the conversation?
So the only thing I was going to add is just in terms of the tribes overall themselves. For me, I think the blue tribe seems a lot stronger than the orange tribe on paper. I was kind of thinking that way when I was laying out who goes in what tier. I've got a lot more orange people towards the bottom and a lot more blue people towards the top. Obviously, that might not be the case at all, but for me, the tribes do feel a little bit lopsided. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I think definitely the same. And if I was going to be more blunt about it, I think the blue tribe is going to absolutely butcher the orange tribe to start this off. And I think we get a swap pretty soon in, which will balance things out, hopefully.
So do you want to tell the listeners what's coming up next on the podcast?
Yeah, we'd love to. So this kicks off our pre-season coverage. Hopefully you've enjoyed our cast assessment. So before the season begins, we're hoping to release 2 more podcasts. So one focused all on our predictions for the season, including who we think are going to be our winner picks. We're also going to do another podcast, fantasy draft style. As always, follow us on Instagram, on Twitter, reach out to us at thesitoutbench@gmail.com. I'm really keen to kind of hear your thoughts and opinions. Message us with any questions. Definitely going to do some fan questions, some podcasts in the future, but also respond to kind of some of the polls. Who had the better list? Me or potentially Matt, but not really Matt. It's definitely me.
It's definitely mine.
So thanks everyone for listening. Really, really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you on the next one.
See you next time.